Not yet. Okay, maybe now.
All right, sweet. Ladies and gentlemen, our great folks, viewers, followers, all the reps and beyond, well wishers, we want to welcome you to today's edition of the All the Reps and Beyond podcast. My name is Newman Walker. Welcome to a bright and sunny day in Minnesota, which is very unusual for this time of the year, but hey, we're gonna enjoy it. Lenny, how's the weather on your end?
I couldn't tell because I haven't even looked outside today. But I think it's a little cool. Yesterday was school, so I don't know.
Amazing. Fitman, what about you? How's the weather on your end?
Actually, today was a mild day for us. 66. Yeah.
60, 66 is mild?
Um. Yeah, it's
That's
mild.
for Texas.
I know. It's always hot down there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well,
It was warmer yesterday.
wherever you are, I want to wish you a pleasant day. Today is a really good day to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here on the All the Reps and Beyond podcast, we want to welcome all our guests. Um, so we're gonna jump right in. So if you've been following, by the way, my name is. Let's just skip back a little bit and kind of reintroduce ourselves. Make sure that our guests know exactly who's here, and then we can go from there. I'm your host, Newman Walker. Always here for you. Always here to bring out the best about Liberia. Always here to accentuate the positive. Glennie, go ahead. Tell your people who you are.
Hello to those of you who don't know me. I know most of you do. I'm Glendy Jane Juniors. It's a pleasure to be here with all the book people here today. Today I'm not watching. I'm actually here to participate. So it's good to be here.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone. For me, I'm always excited because we have a platform that, like he said, insinuating the positive. And if we look at the state of social media today, man, we almost like the new normal is negativity. So whenever we have something or politics, whenever we have a platform where we can exchange ideas and provide information that people could feed off, it's a great opportunity. And excited to have. Glendy on. Don't mind her. She's smart. She brings a lot to the table. She's trying to be. But
Yes,
we're excited. I mean, it's good to be here with you, brother. That's right.
yes, yes, sir, yes, sir. So, we're very, very excited to have our dear sister, Miss Glenn. And Glenn, please, I don't want to butcher your name, so I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing it the right way, so that going forward, I don't make any mistakes. So we
Glenda.
have with us today
Miss
Miss
Glendy.
Glenda Jean Juniors.
Yes. Glendy Jane Juniors.
And of course, my distinguished and gentleman and co-host Dr. Pitt McKinney is here with me as well. We're expecting CC Goya and Leo Johnson to join us later on. So hopefully, wherever they are, they're safe and doing well, and at some point they can join with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you've been following, we've been diving into education and culture in Liberia. And for the past 2 going on 3 weeks, we've talked about several different topics covering this particular category. So when we started off the podcast, we started with the roots of the Liberian educational sector. So how was it formulated? Who were the players? Um, how did we educate our people once we established the Liberia educational sector? And then we went forward on the second week to talk about the lost generation. So that's the generation that went to school when the civil crisis started, how they were affected by a breakdown in our educational sector, Um, there was very interesting story about people graduating from high school and going on to be teachers. So um, we had a generation that was affected greatly by untrained teachers, to say. So we went on to talk about all those challenges, and now we're at the final segment of our three-part series, which covers post-conflict rebuilding. So today we'll be talking about the culture of Liberia, what kind of policy we hope to see the local government and the government in its entirety implement going forward, and then the way forward, how do we transform our educational sector? So today, that's what we're going to be covering. We hope that you can stay with us as we go through this discussion. We promise you that it's going to be intriguing, it's going to be interesting. And hey, I have a little bit of a surprise. A lot of you already know, but we have a call in number today. Today, we have a call in number. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the calling number. So at some point, we're going to ask you if you want to participate in today's program or today's podcast. If you want to be a part of the show, you want to express your own viewpoints, you can call that number and then we'll have you express your views. This is a major piece of the podcast, and we hope that we can have a lot of people engaging with us. All right. With that said, um, Glenny,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So let's just roll out. Let's just look. I want to say to everyone, don't hold back. One of the things that I try my best to do here, and not me alone, but I think this is like the mantra of the podcast is to remain positive, to stay away from the political jobs and what have you. Even though it's kind of difficult to do that in most cases, but we don't only want to talk about the issues here, we also want to create a space, where people can participate, where people can network, come together and find solutions to some of these problems.
Mhm.
So with that, Glennie, this question is for you. What is the state from your own um, perspective? What is the state of the Liberian educational sector? How do you see it?
So I think I see it as being in a trying to survive mode. I don't know if there's if there's anything definite that we can say about our system that everyone will share the same views and ideas. I think when you look at the influx of different schools that we have in Liberia, especially when as it relates to private schools. Everybody has a private school, a private university, an elementary school. Everyone's building schools, so you want to think like, is there a system that everyone is following that is guided? How is the Ministry of Education able to be accountable for the curriculum that those schools have? Is there one set of curriculum? Is there a place that we can go to and or we can be able to examine the different curriculums? The other thing is, depending on where you're from, in my opinion, if I have been in Ghana for years, and I'm able to open a school, then I want to believe that what I'm taking to Liberia is the curriculum from what the Ghanaians do or what the Americans do. And so in the midst of all of that, we've lost track of the curriculum for Liberian schools. When I grew up, the things that I knew, like I would go to any school I went to, I was sure to know, I knew that everybody probably had the same curriculum. If not the same teachers, we followed the same thing. So it would have been easy back then to study with anybody from any other high school in 11th grade because we all were doing algebra, trigonometry, all of those things. So I think education in Liberia is in survival mode. I don't think all is lost, But I think research and finding up and developing a curriculum that represents Liberia and the educational system that you want will be able to help. But I think they're just surviving. I don't think the ministry. Also, another problem is that I don't think the ministry has a handle on all of the schools. Like, what do they follow? What are the guidelines? How can you control that? Is there a list that you from us from this podcast can go to? Is there a place we can go, a database that we can go and know all of the schools that's in Liberia, and that is inclusive of all of the counties, not just Monrovia? Liberia educational system, we should not limit it to Monrovia. We should limit it even to, we should extend it to the towns and villages. It's what being and look at it as what we are learning in Monrovia. Are we learning the same thing in Banga? Are we learning the same thing in Tototown? What is the extent of the Liberian curriculum that they currently have, and how are they managing? So I think that the educational system in Liberia is in trying survival mode, and I don't know how long they will be able to sustain that. But they're just trying because their children, people have to go to school. We have to keep schools open. So whatever we can do, we're managing that. I think we're managing.
Survival mode. I was that's a very valid point. A few days ago, I made a post on Facebook talking about us as a country, getting away from that survival mode, because when you're in survival mode, you're only thinking about, okay, what is the next thing? What is that next thing that will keep me going for tomorrow? You're not thinking 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or even a year down the road. So yes, Pittman, Glennie talked about the curriculum, the fact that there's no standardized curriculum. How does that affect our system, both long term and short term?
Gravely. Um, there's a it affects the system gravely in that to to extend to pull the thread on some of Glendy's positions. Governance and accountability is absent. So when you don't have a governance and accountability to kind of oversee whatever structure curriculum you have across the board, then everybody stands up what they feel is their version of what school should look like. Not trying to be redundant, but without governance and accountability, then we can't set up structure. And without structure, then the people that are going to school are just going through the motion. Okay. If we reflect the pre-war time, I mean, you could actually have a dialogue or discussion with young students, and they understood why they were going to school. I'm not sure our young people understand that right now. Some kids are just going to school because, and not to their fault, because the parents themselves are in, to Glenda's point, survival mode. So, as well, in a different direction, right? So they're trying to find food to put on the table at all costs. So they don't even have that time to converse with their child or their children to understand why they should be going to school and how important it is. So lack of any kind of structured curriculum, we're headed nowhere. I mean, yes, we are managing, you could call it that, but in the long term, look at the graduation rates, look at the national level tests, the WAPs and all, look at the results, look at the criteria to go into colleges. There's really nothing that's a true measuring stick of and in fact, let's get to where the rubber meets the road. Look at the graduates of the colleges. I'm not even gonna get to the high school yet. The colleges, right? Can they even read and comprehend a paragraph? Like I question that, and it's really hurtful to us that care. It hurtful. So we have a problem that when you look at there was a 70% devastation rate, right, during the war, that to the infrastructure and the whole educational system. And you tag on a 48% illiteracy rate to that. How do we bounce out of that? But even though you add to that the lack of focus or lack of care of the governors, I mean the people that should care, government come and government go, and no priority, I would say, have been placed on building up the educational system. So hopefully, we can think and become creative and collaborative and see if we can find a way out. Because we can do it. Like I said in the first week, the only folks that can really change Liberia are Liberians. So I'll
I
rest right
agree.
and welcome my brother CZ.
The Cece, go ahead, my brother. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to see you.
Hello, my darling brother. We're here today.
We're here.
Just all the people at the border.
We temporarily see the power. I heard no many were here, no political job, so we're not going to do none of that. We turned power over temporarily. My sister and myself decided.
Yes.
We were fully engaged on this one. Then from there we'll go back to the border. But it's nice to be on. Sorry for running late. Duty calls as usual. So, but I'm glad to be here though.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're talking about the state of the state as far as the Liberian educational sector. So for you, Cece, Glennie talked about the fact that we do not have a standardized curriculum. So one a curriculum that addresses our current educational need. Dr. Kennedy spoke about that too a little bit. For you, the question, my dear brother, what stands out to you the most? Is it and this is from the context of reviewing and looking at our educational sector. So what stands out for you the most? Is it the progress that we've made, whether little or very minute, or is it these vast gaps that Glennie has alluded to when she talked about the curriculum, that we don't have a standardized curriculum?
I think it's a mix of all of them. I would be remiss if I don't put in the space that we do have the Ministry of Education does put out K-12 requirements, and there some people call it standards, some people call it curriculum. This is the problem. We have not defined one thing in Liberia because the standards is different from a curriculum. But the ministry does have guidelines out there. Now, the problem that the educational sector faces is not unique to the educational system alone. It's spread across all of our other sectors. We have things. We just don't know what we have, and we don't know how to implement it. Right? You go to healthcare. We build these clinics all around the places. We got all these, how do we bring people together? We got these midwives and stuff. We don't bring folks together. At the end of the day, people selling prescription drugs in buckets, passing around in communities. It's the same thing with our educational system. The gap is really wide. The gap has never been that close, but it's gotten wider. And I don't want to sit here and pretend like normal days was good either. And because the way our educational system is set up, quality is defined differently across different places. And even within places where they agree on what quality education is, access to that quality education is really limited. And so for me, it is the issue of what do we really want our children to know? I'm going to forget about colleges and universities for now. But what do we really want our students to know when they graduate high school? Have we defined that? Because once we determine that as a nation, then we can lay our standards, we can lay our curriculums to push that, right? But if you have, like to Pittman's point, it bothers me a lot when during graduation season, you see all these videos that go viral with graduates giving speeches that in not colloquial and not English, right? It's in the middle of those two things. It bothers me that people who are in position to make changes, take it as joke. That is an indictment on how we have failed our young people, because they're going to go to colleges. They're going to be the next political leader of a political party that doesn't know that my KB is not the third largest county, right? Yeah, that's my one shot. But the point I'm trying to make here, normally, and to be short, is we have many needs, and the economists will say we have limited resources. How do we make sure that those limited resources are meeting our needs? We have to prioritize. In order to prioritize, we have to determine what we want. What kind of an educational sector do we want? How do we want to make sure that quality is spread out across the nation? Just in Monrovia alone, you can see the inequity in quality and whatever that quality is. Pittman talked about going to Warehurst, and I'm sorry to pick on you, Dr. Pittman, but it was a very appropriate conversation you brought at one time. And folks will say Warehurst was kind of like graduate. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. You're saying Warehurst is kind of less graduate, and you're saying CWA is the ace. How are you making sure that the people, children, Liberians, by the way, that are going to Warehurst do not continuously fail? That Warehurst does not continue to become a college graduate and continue to churn out graduates that are going to be in our workforce that we're going to depend on. But we are comfortable. We're having schools that we call college graduate, and we are having schools that we call the ACEs, and we're making not one conscious decision on how we close that gap. So for me, it's just even closing the gap between the schools we call quality and what we call less quality, before we even talk about closing the gap between our nation and the rest of the world. Because I will close on this. When I used to teach in Brooklyn Center, a lot of the students that come from Liberia that come to Minnesota will end up in Brooklyn Center High School. And you have these kids come from these prestigious schools. The school that Comey's lead, and some of these other really wonderful, prestigious schools. And they come to me and you give them an assessment. Sometimes you're lucky if they're 3 grades level below. Sometimes they're 5, 6 grade level below. So a kid is coming from Liberia that comes from a prestigious school that is very, very smart by Liberian standard, that's been acing all their math and sciences in 11th grade, but they're testing at a 5th grade level, right? So for me, and that is the bigger piece. So how can we even close the gap just within Liberia? If I pick a school in PNZ, pick a school in Central Monrovia, and pick a school in Lofa County, and pick a school in Sino, and we compare, how are we closing those gaps? For me, that's the bigger problem.
Well, thank you, my brother. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate your perspective, just because as an educator, you have a vast knowledge and expertise on this subject matter. So I appreciate that. So guys, let me roll back the curtain a little bit, and maybe this will take our mind to a place where we can look at the past and hopefully project the future. So back in 1956, that's when the Liberian legislature established the educational law. So that law brought together the Ministry of Education. I guess, not guess, but I know in 1955 was around the same time that we started our iron ore exploration. So the industrialization process of Liberia pretty much, started around that time. So there was a need, to educate our people. So with Totman, President Totman at the time, his focus on education was making education a lot more accessible to the indigenous parts. Teachers training was part of his governmental platform. He also, President Tubman was the one who built most of the schools that we have in Liberia. Well, hold on 1 minute, folks. Leo is joining us. Let me just. So President Tubman was the president who built a lot of the schools. So a lot of the schools that we currently have, infrastructure that we have in Liberia currently, was built by President Totman. So then we had the industrial boom. So folks started going to these vocational schools, learning in places like Lamco, bomb mines, and other places. Then President Torbo came along. So President Torbo expanded based on our current or our needs at the time, where we're exploring iron ore, we were exporting a lot of rubber. So we needed a lot of people who could work in those industries. It was around the time that we had, I would call it major industrial complexes in Liberia per Liberian standard. So we had people producing paint. They call it the wood factory. We had the in Buchanan, we had places like Palm Bay, they used to call it, where we're manufacturing palm oil and all those stuff. So we have major factories all around the country, and the population were going to these vocational training centers because that was the trend at the time. Then the war came. All right, the war came and broke down every facet of our society. So now we're rebuilding. So the question now to everyone here is, do you think that we're educating our population based on our current need as a country? So, for example, the war came and destroyed all our major infrastructure. Do we need um, people going to a University of Liberia studying business and management degrees? So the last time I checked, the graduate level, so the University of Liberia graduated, I think about 600 or 700 students, probably more than that. But out of that, I think 80 to 90% graduated with a business degree. So the question now is, do you think we're educating our population? Do you think we're educating our people to meet our current need as a country? Anybody can take
All
that
right.
one.
You know me, that's a big no.
Well, hold on 1 minute. Let me welcome Leo. Leo, thanks for joining us. Before you jump in, Peter, welcome, my brother. We'll get to you later, and then you can say hi to your people. Go ahead, Dr. Kennedy.
What's up, Leo? Welcome, brother. For me, it's no, but with some explanation. So this question is loaded, right? I said no first, but then I don't know if we know what the needs are or they're appropriately aligned to fit an education system to feed into them. That's the first thing. So we got a bigger problem than just or are we educating them? Because say you go to a business management school and come out, is that student ready to assume those responsibilities? Probably not. But not only that, the owner and the operators of those opportunities, do they have them aligned? In other words, this is a mystery wrapped in an enigma, all in a riddle. Like we don't know what we don't know, and it's chaos. It's very frustrating. But anyways, let me just kind of qualify it back into the context that we have, assuming that they go to school and they're prepared to assume. No, in that the criteria, the curriculum, the accountability and governance, they are off. So, for instance, let me give you a perfect example. If you look at the colleges today, right, which are supposed to prepare these individuals to assume these positions, any given day, any instructor will say, look, class at for a 5 o'clock class, will send a message at 4:30 and say, hey, I'm not making class tonight. And that's it. And that's perfectly acceptable. So throughout the semester, you have an occurrence of those instances, right? What does that do? That put those students at a deficit, even though they don't see it. And a lot of the students will be happy. Oh yeah, I don't have class tonight. But you pay them money to get educated, to learn. And the teacher that you're paying, the institute that you're paying is cheating you, and you are okay with that. That speaks to a different problem. Exploitation, and again, I know Glenda probably can chime in at some point. Exploitation. If you look at the college system right now, a lot of the people that teach, they're exploiters of the young people, whether it's for money or sex, whatever. It's like I would take this opportunity so I can exploit the young people, and the males will probably pay me, and the females will either pay me in one of those two forms. So we have a problem. So we are not preparing our people adequately. Because if a student in environmental science comes out and pay her dues whatever way to this instructor, she passes with an A, flying colors, and she get a graduate degree. I mean, a degree at graduation, was not prepared. Ill prepared for the responsibility. So I'll stop there because I know we got a lot of people that chime in, but that's my point. Emphatically, no.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Kennedy's position is no. Leo, let's come to you since you just came here. Let's give you the chance to dive in on this. So Dr. Kennedy is saying no. So what do you think, Leo? What is your position on this? Do you think we're educating our people based on our current needs as a country?
Yeah, thank you and greetings, everyone. Sorry I got on late. It's good to see you, Glendy. Good to see everybody. Yeah, I would say we're not even educating them in the first place, and that is part of my problem. There's one thing to talk about educating them properly is one thing. There is something that is say you have to be educable to be educated, right? You don't jump over the point of being educable to be educated, and I'll say what I mean by that. When the war interrupted everything that we talked about, Some of the great institutions and great educators we had before the war, nobody can debate that part. We destroyed everything. The war was not temporary. It's not like the war just happened for 6 months and for 12 months and a temporary interruption, we came back. The war went on for almost 2 generations, literally off and on. I mean, off and on until 2005, we were off and on. So we never got an opportunity to really take a pause. Every time it's like we did something and it looked like we're coming back to normality or whatever, another thing erupted and took us even further backwards. And the biggest disservice our people did to us was when the war ended, finally we got a breather. They came and made us believe we could continue from where we actually stopped, that we could just whitewash the school, clean all the green water, wash the place, and bring the teachers back in the classroom and the children start coming back to school, and we just continue going. They did the same thing with UL, which is why UL problem has become so systemic, because instead of sitting down and saying, you know what, we destroyed everything here, we need to do a new assessment as to where this nation is, and that assessment should inform what we're doing. No, everybody lazily came back, opened their school. In fact, they started by doing one-on-one classes. They open, they said we'll continue the other class where, then we'll add the other class back. They started trying to develop the country backwards in terms of education. We started trying to make the country education system what it was like before the war, when the world had moved so far, and Liberia itself was in a different age and a different era. So what is happening in Liberia is that nobody knows what they're doing with the education system. Who runs their education system based on grants? Based on what the World Bank writes and tell you, say, do X, Y, Z. So what the World Bank is doing, they're taking the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, right? Many of these countries are already educable to be able to tap into the SDGs. Liberia is not even capable yet of looking at the SDGs because the work that has to be done at the foundational level is not in place. It's like telling somebody, say, my man, I will give you a Lamborghini to be driving. I'll give you a luxury car, but the man does not get car road to go to A. So the man drive the car, the man get to stop the car 15 minutes away. And then the man trek on a full 15 minutes to get to his house. And then you're asking the man, why the man getting home late and getting to work late? Because he got 15-minute trek to actually make. Because he got 15-minute trek. He has.
I understand, my brother.
I have a special guest. My special guest. What do you say, baby? Okay, sorry, go to Father.
Everybody's welcome here.
Thank you. All right, I have my special guest here with me today.
Understood.
Yeah. So the man has to trek, as I was saying, 15 minutes. So the man is always late. The man is always late as a result, and you're wondering why the man is always late, even though you gave the man a Lamborghini. Yeah, because the man I got car will go into his house. This is where we are right now as a country. And for me, for us to be able to move, we need a whole new build of the education system from ground up. You cannot get a good product from a bad system. It's not possible. You have to have a solid system to get a good product. So I will follow Dr. Kennedy to say it's an absolute no. Right now, what we're doing, we're just making it on the fly as we go along. And then when we have few children that are so bright in our system, that work so hard and are resilient, we try to make it look like our education system is so good that the reason why it's producing those children. No, some of these kids are just smart. They apply themselves, they do the hard work, and they are able to lift their heads above water. We are not educational nation. There is no national strategy for what we are doing. Every school in Liberia is doing its own thing. Everybody, international school, then say the other school running some kind of curriculum from one school in Britain, another school running another curriculum for another school in America, another school running. So everybody's doing their own thing. So we don't have a system. We have a disjointed organization and everybody trying to do whatever they can do.
Well spoken, my brother. I mean, my mind is just running in 1,000 directions right now. Glenn, let's go to you. So I know you highlighted that the piece that Leo just spoke about, the fact that we don't have a standardized curriculum as far as education is concerned in Liberia. So let me ask you this, Glennie. And I know we can't shut the entire country down. They say, oh, let's shut everything down. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's draw up, a new educational system for Liberia. And then let's go and look for all the 9 months old or the 1 year old children and then start putting them in daycare and primary education. Or we can't do that. The country got to go on. Country got to go on. We got to keep the wheels turning. So then, how do we start?
So let me just say, Leo, it's good to see you, Leo. I'm feeling so educated here today with all these fine, educated people here tonight. But anyway, we will know the colloquia. We're just getting started. But I wanted to first, before I address your point, I wanted to add something to what Sisse said. And my point also is, yes, there may be a curriculum, there may be something that they have that the education ministry may be using, but is every school in the country using that? And I think that is the problem, that everybody will come and open a school, set their own curriculum based on whatever country they want, whether it is Ghana, whether it's whether it's Ivory Coast, whether it's the States, whether it's Canada, everybody will come. There's no standard form of learning compared to when I grew up, that they're using now. And the other thing is, to your point, is this: my answer to the question will be no, but it's possible to do something. It is so possible. Every time I think about education,
how do we start? Where do we start from?
I think you start by first using the resources. So, and one of the things I think that Liberia does that is not beneficial is you have a lot of people with expert knowledge. You got a lot of people. You got CC them. Put your educators together and do a symposium and ask them, this is where we are. Where are we? Where can we go from here? You got people, if you were to even do a database of your educators, get a feel of those people and hear from them. How can we do this? You can also divide the country into, you have 12 months. Every 4 months, you make a change in an area, put it into different areas. This month, we're going to focus on rolling this out into 4 counties and get that done. And so they'll continue what they have until you get to them, but it's not impossible to do. I don't think we make the effort to be able to explore the opportunity to make the changes that we have. And that's no negative to the education ministry that is trying to survive. But what they're doing now, is it sustainable? How long can they do this for? When we sit and Sister mentioned about people, sometimes we see those people doing those graduation speeches. Yes, the first impression is we'll laugh. But then when you really think about it, you're like, wow. If I was doing this in my day when I went to Cathedral High School, I wouldn't even dare do that, because there will be people out there, because when going to school back then, it's like you're always striving to do better because your friend is an A student and you want to be that friend. So it's not impossible for the country to be able to revamp the curriculum or start a new process with the school system. It can be done. They don't have to look at it and do it now, but you need to be able to explore the educators you have. SCC can be here in Minnesota, and it's well known, and people know, and people depend on him, and people allow him to plan. What is it that he won't be able to suggest to Liberia? I think Liberians, we have so many people that we're not using, and so we're stuck in thinking that what we're doing is better. And when people come and make suggestions, then we get upset, like, oh, the one that they're not here, they think they know everything. But you have to incorporate us into the system to be able to make the changes that's necessary to move us forward.
Dominic, can I just say something? I think Glennie just struck a point. I wanted to just emphasize on it. I will say this here openly.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dominic.
Okay.
We can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
So I'll say this openly. When we talk about building systems, right? All these organizations and international partners have been going to Liberia since the war ended. All of them are only interested in quick impact programs and projects. You cannot build an education system built on quick impact. There's other World Bank can get an education ministry $2 million to do the 1 year program. But nobody asks the questions, what happens after the $2 million from the World Bank finishes? What's going to happen? So the learning center that we build in Liberia, I made an offer. I've put the forth on the table. I've sent it to the right government authorities to say, the first thing what this can do for you, it can help you start to curate organized educational materials. The problem in Liberia, the Ministry of Education say everybody might use the Green Algebra book, right? It's not available. There's nowhere to go buy it to say, oh, we know where the supply comes from. if you have a national library system, where when you curate a certain educational materials, the library system is responsible for bringing in that material in bulk to make it available. So I offer them and say, you know what? Why not establish an autonomous agency, the National Library System of Liberia? We will go out if you establish an autonomous agency, because donors don't have to be worried about that money going into government hands. We will go out and raise about $30 million and replicate the Learning Center across the country as a national system in the capital of every county. So if you say you needed a green algebra book, guess what? We will curate the book and bring it in with the Ministry of Education's help, and it's available in every county at the library. People can go there. Teachers themselves can access the teacher's version of the curriculum itself and do it. Up to now, it's been months. Nobody has responded. We said we will raise the money. I'm not saying, and the Learning Center, the good thing is, as we speak, within 1.5 years, we are projecting that it will be self-sufficient. It's raising enough revenue to need money from nowhere else. It pays its own staff, pays its own costs. Just in library cards alone, we'll be raising around $150,000 US. So my thing is, we've gotten used to this quick impact project. The solutions are already there. Why can we not start building our own system so that when the World Bank comes or the IMF comes, we'll tell and say, we thank you all. Yeah, the system we have built as the foundation. We want you to build on it, because when you leave, our system will still be in place, even if our capacity is reduced.
That's a very strong point. So from what I'm gathering from you, Leo, we're talking about documentation. So not only documenting, but then being able to test the system to see if it works. Dr. Kennedy, let me ask you this question. When we talk about Liberia, a lot of times, I'm having some technical problems. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good. We can hear you clearly.
All right. So a lot of times when we talk about Liberia, our government and most of the implementation processes of these different systems, it starts and ends in Monrovia. So you made a point, Dr. Kennedy, Leo, Mr. Johnson made a point about the Learning Center. Now that Learning Center is in Monrovia. So every data that will be collected, every testing will be at the Learning Center. How do we account for places like Lofa? How do we account for places like Harper, Maryland County? How do we account for places like Greenville? Are we educating our kids in Monrovia the exact same way that we're educating our people in those parts? All right. How do we build a system, and how do we test it? Do we start testing in Monrovia, or should we be testing from, say, Harper or Vonjima? And then I was talking to a big brother of mine about this topic. Shout out to Mr. Kenneth Smith. And he was talking about, I think he said, the loop-in effect, where you're testing from outwards and then coming in and then looping it back outwards to see if, because by the time you loop it back outwards, then you've dealt with all the different challenges, you'll fix it. So when you're bringing it back in, so for example, if you start a program in Maryland or Foya or wherever, as that program comes towards Monrovia, you're testing, you're seeing where there's issues, and then you're fixing it. So by the time it gets to Monserrato and you're able to kick it back out to those counties, then you have enough data and you have enough experiences with those challenges, and you're able to solve it. So, Dr. Kennedy, how do you think, how should we go about this? How do you think we should be going about it?
So again, I'll probably put this piece outside. Well, first of all, you need leaders that care enough. That's it. You need leaders that are visionaries, that will care enough to collaborate with the right folks, the right tech experts that will be able to pilot these efforts, because it starts with pilot. Okay, you pilot it out to Hopper, and then you collect what we call lessons learned along the way, and then you bring it back, draw it back to the origin, the point of origin, or Monrovia, or so to speak. But absent of those things, it becomes a travesty to whatever implementation that we envision, right? So you have leaders that care first, that's going to collaborate with the experts to the point of Mr. Glendy on CC. These are guys these are trailblazers, right? These guys are trailblazers in those respective areas. So you cannot try to implement things that they are expert in without consulting them, wherever it is. So leaders that care consult, collaborate, pilot it, lessons learned, and then if it's solution, if it's make adjustments as you go, and then incorporate. That will be my trend of direction for that.
All right, thank you, my brother. CZ, let's go to you. Leo mentioned, I think both Leo and Glendy mentioned something about having a conference. All right. Now, I know Liberia, we're really good at talking. We're really good at talking, but when it comes to implementation, I think that's where we get stuck. So my question to you, CZ, is if we call a conference of Liberian educators, we sit down and we devise or design the new educational curriculum for Liberia. How do we go about it? How do we start? Do we start from, say, addressing our K1 or we call it Promo 1 and Promo 2 in Liberia, just so people understand what we're talking about here? Do we start by maybe building one major Promo 1 or Promo 2 institution in each county to get this ball rolling? Or do we start at the high school level? Or do we say, from now going forward, we're going to transform all our universities from just university to a vocational university? How do we go about it?
Well, first thing, thank you. I wanted to opine on the question before that I didn't get a chance to talk about.
Go ahead. You can do that.
Whether or not we had failed. I take a slightly different view. I don't think it's an absolute yes. To say an absolute yes is to assume that before the war we were doing absolute yes, we were doing absolutely better, and which is a false statement. And so we cannot say absolutely the education system is now failing, because to put that in context suggests that the Talberts, the Todmans, the Barclays, and everybody else had done better by us, and they hadn't, right? And I'm sorry if somebody out there went to some prestigious private school like I did, and I'm busting your bubble. We weren't, okay? And I think some of the things we have to learn to define in Liberia is to talk things within context. We have not yet decided to define, to clearly distinguish between a curriculum and a standard, okay? So for folks who are listening, for example, in Minnesota, we just wrote I was a co-chair on the math standards. We just wrote the 2022 math standards, right? All of the things we expect the kids to learn, kindergarten until they graduate high school in mathematics. Every local district decides what curriculum they're going to use to meet that standard, to deliver that standard to their kiddos. So if one of our standards is that you can do the quadratic, you can analyze the quadratic formula, then we're not beholden to the green algebra textbook that Leo talked about. You can find whatever textbook, as long as you're meeting that standard. Okay. The other piece is we can allow for so many other ways of educating. We've had that before in Liberia. We've had the parochial system, these religious institutions that have high schools. We have private schools that are now religious institutions, and we have public schools. We can allow for international school. We can allow for international baccalaureate. You can allow for all of those pieces if you have a standard. You bring your IB, your international baccalaureate. You bring your British education system, which most times the international baccalaureate anyway. How is that? How are you making sure that you're meeting Liberia's standard as the floor, right? So the national standard is the floor. We don't care what else you build on it. Everybody should have the same floor, right? So if you go to Todman High, or you go to Bokoniwe school, or you go to a school in Slower Public School, if you're a graduate of any of those places, CWA and everything, we expect, and there's a minimum expectation. That's what the national standards should address. Now you can go and build a 3-star building over a 5-star. You turn the executive mansion into a hotel. That's on you, right? The problem is that we have a habit. The problem is that we have a foundation. We have a solid foundation. Okay. To that end, the other piece is when we discuss the education system, sometimes I will hope that we can either focus on sectors. We either focus on K-12, or we focus on post K-12? Because the needs are different, right? Leo spoke very well about the systems, and we came back, we just well-washed, and we move on. There are some places, some sector of our educational system that would make sense to do, especially K-12, right? Except for the fact that Pluto was not a planet anymore. We're still teaching the same chemistry, the same physics. The last time I checked, Charles' laws and Boyle's laws have not been updated. They stay the same even after the war, right? We're still in there. So we could still teach those pieces and still kind of like continue while we transition, okay? But to go to post-secondary and pretend like we were still back from where the war ended, like everything, it was a disservice to our people, because what we didn't do was to set that sector up to provide skills for economic recovery. We had an economic destruction. We cannot come back and have an educational sector that does not support education, economic recovery. STEM is what I'm talking about. Well, in Liberia, it should be STEAM, actually.
Yeah.
We should not forget about the arts, right? We should add the arts in it. So again, because we got a lot of people listening, so STEM is the science, technology, engineering, and math. But STEAM for me is the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Yeah.
Okay, because in Liberia, we have a very rich and vibrant art scene. And we have a very strong art historical scene. So we should include that, because that is good for a holistic education. Now, having said that, I think when we start to look at, I went to Cedar Junior College, now UMU. I graduated from Cedar Junior College. I always laugh when people say I did accounting. With actually did bookkeeping at Cedar, I got my AA degree. I got it on my wall somewhere here. That's the only degree kind of how you see up on my wall, my AA degree from CDA, because I put it out there to laugh all of the time, because I was calculating mortgage payment in Liberia when I didn't know what mortgage payment was, and I was
absolutely
in CDA Junior College. So to the point now that where do we go? How do we move forward? Look, Liberia, we are not data short. We are not starving for data. We are not starving for, like I tell people, oh, what's the new law you created? We're not starving for laws in Liberia. We're starving for enforcement. We're starving for interpretation of the data that we have. To have a national conference, to what end? To what end? When we come from these conferences, we don't set benchmarks. We don't set smart goals. We don't set goals that are achievable and lay in how are we going to achieve them, and what's going to be the checkpoints, and how we're going to make sure we're doing well. And if we're not doing well, how do we pivot? In Liberia, you do something, you leave it. We don't pivot. We don't go back to assess and say, is it working well? Is it not working well? How do we pivot? I have to give credit where credit is due, because I was on the Ministry of Education website since actually the day before yesterday, in prep for this show. Yeah. They do have a draft revised national curriculum out. They have that out, first grade through 12th grade, and I think they're seeking inputs. And I'll put it out here. It says download. I click on download several times. I want to download it, so maybe that my computer all up came.
Oh, Cesar, I try also. It didn't work.
I tried.
It didn't work.
All right, I didn't want to say that. Just me posting like, oh, computer go through away, because I know people going to blame me. So
yeah, I went there and I tried. A lot of the links on the website that
it's not only the download link. There are a lot of the links that are dead end.
So here's where I'll get them the plugs, and here's where I will chastise them. The plugin is that Dr. Jasso and the rest of the folks are using kind of like a quasi-American system of, we're making sure we're building a curriculum. We want to have an input of our community, which makes sense. When we wrote standards here, we had community members that didn't know nothing about math. They were on the committee with us, their parents, their community members. They gave their input, right? When I adopted curriculums in Minneapolis public schools, I had students on my steering committee to make that decision on whether the curriculum makes sense or doesn't make sense. And I have parents that said math sucked. They never knew math. Only thing to do was fraction. I brought everybody on board along with the experts to make that decision. So I think that's what they're trying to do here, to get community input and all the other stuff. But I think if you put that stuff out, you should advertise it, and you should make sure it's accessible, right? It shouldn't be something that somebody go click on, you can't get any access to. So to answer your question, Numeni, in a long about way, we don't need another Liberian national conference. We don't need to spend money that we don't have to fly the likes of CC Goya to Liberia to go live in a very expensive hotel in Liberia and driving him around the place. What we need is our leaders in Liberia to know and recognize that they have vast human resource in the diaspora. And when I say diaspora, I mean from Guinea, Sierra Leone, everywhere around the world that's not Liberia, that they can tap into, and that we don't have to go to Liberia. We can do these things virtually. We can tap into these things virtually. The problem that I've seen, and it's not unique to this new government, is that folks feel like if I ask for help, then I am not capable.
Yes.
And they have not gotten to understand that the smartest leaders and the smartest folks are the ones always checking their blind spots. They're always asking other people for, how do you see this? How would you do this? Because as a human, everybody have a blind spot. If I try to talk to you right now about writing a math curriculum, all my example will be about Lufakande, Bonkande, and Bomikande, because there are 3 countries I live in the most. Right? I don't know much about people that are living in Roaji, the town in Roaji, and that country. So I would not have something like that in it. So I need to check people and say, hey, what does this look like? What does this feel like? So to answer your question, I think Liberia has a potential. For me, that's how I like to see it. We have an opportunity. The war provided us an opportunity to pivot. We had an educational system, like you said, that was built on people going to Palm Bay and working in Firestone. We no longer have those needs. We have bomb mines and the LAMCO. My dad went to a school for LAMCO. We no longer have those. We have a new set of needs in Liberia that can only be met by making sure that we focus on STEAM education. And I don't think we're making a fast enough progress towards pivoting to that system.
You know, thank you, my brother. Your points are well taken. I mean, there's so much stuff to talk about. I feel like we don't have enough time to cover everything. So I will try to limit the conversation. Like you said, you made a very strong point, CC, you know, just to take a piece of the whole. For example, we can look at maybe primary or early education, not primary, but early education, and just take on that, because that's the foundation. Maybe we can just talk about that today, or try to dive in to see how we can start that process, because that's like a strong building block, right? So if you can focus on early education, early childhood education, and have something stronger in place, or something very, very strong with solid foundations, then you can start to test the system from there. You know, the kids that are coming out of those programs, you can see how well they're performing. You know, you can have different tests. So let's go to you, Glenn. If we are to start a strong early childhood education, what do you think? How do we start? What should the focus be? Should that be a community-based program? Should it be a government instituted program where the government starts the process and then hand it off to these different communities? Or should we go back to the old landscape of looking at the different government institutions across the country, and then trying to, because right in Monrovia area, we've seen pictures of kids sitting on the ground in classrooms. So how do you, because if you look at our country, there's so many challenges, right? I mean, the challenges are so many. So sometimes it's just difficult for these folks to look for a particular place where the impact can be felt. So how do we start? How do we go about it? How can the government or the community focus on educating our children?
So I think it's going to be challenging, but it's something that the government has to have the responsibility. And I think that can be done if they work collaboratively with the communities. So we got several senators, representatives, county attorneys, educational people. We have a lot of those people there. So if the government gives a directive, first of all, I think the first thing is to know how many schools we have in a particular district. These are some of these things that the senators and representatives and county attorneys and superintendents, this is what they should be looking at. What's in my district? What schools are in my district? What schools I need to go visit? So I think the government has to have that general oversight, but they can also empower the community, and also the government leaders in those communities need to be able to work with the community to be able to see what do we have and what do we need to fix. It can be done. I almost want to say PTA. I don't even know if we have functional PTAs in Liberia. But I tell you, here in the States, at that one meeting, I was tired going to, because 4 children, before you turn around and I invite you to another one. And whether you want to be a part or not, you have to be a part, because they will continue to invite you. They will continue to keep you informed. We don't even have that. So what organization do we have between the government and the parents and the school? Who's reporting the schools? Who's holding the schools accountable? How is the community involved in the education of the children that live in the community? And that's something that I think government can have oversight. But I think right now, as it is, maybe the community leaders need to do something. Question their senators, their representatives, the superintendent, the county attorney. Each county has an education ministry or education division. What are they doing? What is their responsibility? It's not impossible. It can be done. But if they just do it blanketly and say, oh, we're not doing it now anyway, so where do we start from? We have to do oversight. I was actually looking for the ministry website. I think it was on Wednesday. And I clicked on the Ministry of Education website in Jamaica. And I could see everything I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. And then for us to click to our website, it's like I think when I looked at it, it's almost like they're just building the site. So they already have the bullet points, and they already have the stuff, but there's nothing in there. Yeah. So unless they have to have, and no fault to the education minister and her experience and all of that, but sometimes it has to be that we have to look at the needs of Liberia. What is it that I think that was a point that came out when we got Sister talking about. I did accounting and economics in LU. That's my first degree. We're doing supply and demand. We're doing debit and credit. We do all those things. I ain't doing no accounting here. When I look back at all those things, stressing and studying, it just puts you to a lot of stress. Is it feasible right now to continue to do that and have those different degrees, no technical degrees? I think that one of the things Leo talked about when he speaks about the university. Maybe it's time to look at other degrees and other. Right now, of course, nursing is an unprofessional degree. So all of those things we have to look at them and see what's feasible for our community to be able to do that. But it's not impossible. It can be done.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting for me. When I think about and Leo, you can probably jump in, Dr. Kennedy, if you like to. But here's my whole thought process when I think about Liberia and how we address some of our problems. And of course, today, the topic talks about policy, culture, how we can integrate those things to help in solving our problems as we move forward, right? So instead of the parents-teacher meeting like they do here in the United States, why don't we have a Palava Hut meeting or something along those lines? Because in our culture, the Palava Hut is where we solve our problems. It's where we disseminate information. It's where if the local town chief or whoever it is in the community have something to say, that's where everyone would gather. So I would think about us having something along those lines where now we have all these different districts. So the government could start an early childhood development education program that they can, at the grassroots level, implement in every single district. So I mean, you can integrate districts that are smaller, say for example, based off the population. And I don't know when we had our latest census to know and to gather some of this information, because the census would tell us, our clusters of population and where we need to plan these schools so that people access them, right? So that's one of the pieces that's probably most important that we probably need to talk about, but that's another topic for another day. But if you have all those data, then you can start those programs. And then the monitoring piece. I think the monitoring piece is so important. Because you can't plan a school and then after 1 year, you don't know what is happening in that school. You don't know what the reading proficiency levels are for the students in that school. You don't know what the math, English, and everything else, the abilities of those students are. So that's the way I would see it. Plan them in the local districts, plan them in the local communities, but then also follow up, also test, have a standardized process. But Leo, let me throw this question at you. As far as teachers in Liberia, because we can everything we're talking about, the most important piece of that puzzle are the teachers. Now again, from a Liberia context, where do we stand? I know you spoke about it earlier, but I want us to circle back around again. One of the presidents who drove teachers training was President Talbot. When President Doe came along, I think the teachers training took a little bit of a dive. And then the war came. And as far as I know, there isn't much. I try to look on the ministry's website to see if there was any information on there as far as, teachers training, how many new teachers the government was putting out every year and what were their specializations. I couldn't find anything. So going forward, what do you think? Do you think the focus needs to be on teachers first and then rolling out a good program that addresses the needs of our students, or should it be rolling them out simultaneously?
Yeah, no, thank you. And most people have touched on a lot of things. First, let's say, how do you have any of these conversations with no benchmarks? What is Liberia trying to achieve? All these leaders come to power, they speak these way air up their language. We revolutionize the education system. We will build this. We will build that. This will never be the same. All of those are empty words, right? I would like to see, is the Ministry of Education even having a benchmark to say, for example, this year, annually, where are the benchmarks for the Ministry of Education? How do we know they succeeded or they failed, right? None of that exists. So if we manage to build 2 schools, we celebrate it across the country like we succeeded. Against what benchmark did you build 2 schools? In fact, sometime the year will start, it will not even be in there's no plan whatsoever. The IMF will just show up, we got $10 million, want the Ministry of Education to build 3 schools. We drop everything that we're doing and go build the schools. So we're not having benchmarks. But I think the big issue we're having is we've gotten so used to relief. We keep running our country like a badly run NGO. And not like a government that is here to stay. Because NGOs are usually temporary. They bring relief and, do what they have to do because they know they will leave at some point. How can we be running a country going almost 25 years or more now since the war ended? We still don't have actual benchmarks and institutions. Testing, all the things we're talking about, Vonjama, where are you going to do it? Nowhere. There's no infrastructure. You don't build programs in isolation. Now, what quick impact did, what the war did to us. The UN came, go, they put out their tents, they built one great program. They didn't care about building institution around it, so the program lasted as long as they were there. The moment they packed their bags, everything collapsed. What you be doing? Sending people from Monrovia, from the Ministry of Education to go, where Vonjama, to go sleep there for 6 weeks, to go do something. When they says we finish, they pack all their bag and their Satoka, they come back to Monrovia until the next year. It doesn't make sense. And for me, the Palavaho conversation, the Palavaho already happening. Look, the Palavaho does not have to happen in one big Palavaho. It happens in different sectors of our society, in the education system. I'll give you an example. We designed a building, Numeni, that you can take and plug in the middle of the forest and it functions. The Learning Center. Okay. Since it is open for 1 year, we've never used any other source of power except solar. Water is the rainwater we are collecting. It survived. It's built from clay, dirt, earth compressed bricks. How are you going to do any of these programs for the next 50 years if you're not intentionally building the kind of infrastructure that it thrives in, the kind of infrastructure that creates the environment for it to thrive? You can spend $20 million and create a standardized testing system across the country. It will collapse in a few years because the nurturing that's supposed to happen, the type of infrastructure that is supposed to, how do you even imagine something abstract if you can feel it, touch it, and experience it? You cannot do that. So for me, the Palaver Hut is already happening in New Many. How can a small NGO from Canada go to Liberia, build something? Everybody happen to be boasting that at the first time they're not happy in Liberia, like it's some kind of pride to be passing around with some kind of badge of honor that it is the first time for it to happen in Liberia. But till now, nobody's having conversations about how does this fit within our education ecosystem? Does this become a node? And one node that we can start to use to leverage what it has done. Even though there are people showing up and saying, we're happy to help you raise the money, we're happy to help you do the work, we've already done a prototype for you. So my question is, our governments and our leaders have gotten so used to the temporary quick impact project. Right now, if I show up to Liberia, I say I got $30 million, everybody will be fanning around me like a poo-poo fly. But if I show up right now and say we need to do 1 year of planning to acquire the $30 million, nobody will pay me attention. That learning center took 13 years. We are boasting, I said the only one. So for me, until we can build intentional infrastructure, everybody will continue to treat our country like a badly run NGO. Because guess what? If you have intentional infrastructure already in place that creates the nurturing environment, and Sisi Goya shows up and say he's in Liberia for 8 weeks, and he wants to help the education system. Instead of you sending him to random schools to go teach math, maybe we can take him to that place and say, Sisi, can you develop something here, trainer of the trainer, so that when you're leaving after your 8 weeks or whatever that is, what you have done is actually embedded within an ecosystem and an environment that it continues to be nurtured rather than a one-time wonder. This is what's happening to us. You know how many money have been dumped into the education system in Liberia from UNICEF to World Bank? Just a few days ago, they pumped another $88 million. How can you spend $88 million and still don't build an education system for 5 million people?
Yeah, no, it's good that you raised that point, because I was trying to follow up based off the points you're making. So Joe Barker's arrest agenda, of course, the arrest, I think, is for agriculture, education, and rule of law, tourism. So part of his agenda, the educational piece, there's a Excel project, and the Excel stands for Excellence in Learning in Liberia. So it's a $88.7 million investment.
That's from the World Bank.
Yeah, so $60 million credit from the World Bank, and then there's a $28.7 million grant from the Global Partnership of Education. But the project aims to improve literacy and numeracy among public early childhood and primary school students. It targets 2,337 public early childhood and primary schools across 15 counties. About 350,000 students from final year of early childhood to grade 6 will receive improved learning materials. So I don't know what they mean by learning materials, though.
And you made a good point with that, because I've read over that grant completely. So the World Bank is dumping money into something we did not initiate to begin with. All of these things you are talking, where is it going to happen? You don't have our public schools. Totmeha, right in Monrovia, it's in a dilapidated state. Totmeha, where most of the big government officials that went to, cannot even function. So how are you going to cultivate a literacy and numeracy in a country that doesn't even have a public library, in a country that has a black market for books? Liberia, the only country that got black market for books, that are drugs you buying. You go to World Trade Center, you tell the beginners, I'm looking for a math book. They tell you, Baby, sit down, come in, Jenna. Jenna, that's something like illegal trade you're doing. They may disappear for about 20 to 25 minutes. They may reappear with 3 options on the boat, whether he came from stealing it from somebody's shelf or where he appeared with it from. You gain your money quicker, you gain your thing, you disappear. Jenna, we were trading drugs. So can you help me explain, how can we spend $88 million by putting the cart before the horse? We don't even have the environment to cultivate it. Go ahead.
We can't.
I think that I have a different view on that piece. The materials that get spoken about are the curriculum materials. We can have, and again, I'm one of those people who push for library sciences and that they need to have libraries and stuff. But there are many schools in America, particularly in my own city that I live in, that don't have libraries, and we still
But they have bookstores, CZ.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. We don't even have bookstores. We don't sell books. We make sure that the kids have access to the curriculum, to those materials. So we give them the books, which is what this grant is pushing for, to provide those materials, right? The way they're looking at this is like you're in some of these economically disadvantaged educational system. No matter what I'm talking about, in Minnesota, we have the Wazetas that have everything, and then you have the Brooklyn Center that has just one high school and all their pieces. And the Wazetas will teach certain things, and the Brooklyn Center can't teach because we don't have the library, we don't have the resources. So you put the way you do that is a short-term fix. Is your triaging. So because we don't have libraries, doesn't mean we don't provide literacy resources or provide math resources for our students. We still provide those. And so this grant is providing for those materials to be in the hands of the students, right? The other piece here is that
where is George Bush 1 million books that were shipped to Liberia?
Again, I'm just talking about this one piece, right?
No, but that's a piece I'm asking you. It will disappear in 1 year.
Hold on 1 second. I'm not. That's a whole different thing. The security part of it and the black market side. Again, that is not what is being addressed in this grant. I'm just trying to focus. For me, I like to focus when I'm having my conversation.
Yeah, I don't think we should.
1 second, please, Leo.
That's what the grant is doing.
Leo, let me land. Leo, I didn't interrupt you. Let me land.
It was just an informational process, just to provide information. So I don't think that should be the center of our debate or our the exercise here. So carry on, CC.
Yeah. So the point of the grant is that, and as an educator, as a K-12 educator, I do know that you can address numeracy and literacy. It's a nice to have library. If you don't have it, we don't shut it down. We don't turn everything off. We still provide it. I think one of the bigger issues, though, back to your question around the what a teacher's qualification piece is I think where we haven't been able to do these checks and see, okay, we passed this law, is the law working? Because we have a Reform Act of 2011 that requires certain that puts certain educational requirements on folks that can teach early childhood, folks that can teach up to junior high, and folks that can teach secondary, right? And I'm here, I think I put in the chat room the 2021-2022 educational statistics that was collected during that time frame. And when you look at that, it starts to talk about of all of the teachers that reported, we have 50.1% of all teachers were teaching without license, without the appropriate requirement to teach the classes we're teaching, right? Over 50%. This is a law that got passed in 2011, right?
Well, but CZ, I think you spoke earlier about the fact that we have a lot of good laws, but we do not
enforce them. Right? So that brings me to, if we pass an act in 2011, and we're requiring this, we know we weren't going to reach it in 2011. We weren't going to get it maybe in 2015. But what were the benchmarks that we set by this time, and with this amount of money and with this amount of resource? Here's how we're going to attract people going into education. Here's how we're going to provide scholarships at universities. Here's how we're going to provide more pay for educators to make it attractive so that we get these, to get to where the law is asking us to be. But for me, I think that is where the failure is. But I, coming from a school in Slowood, I went to school 1 year, and we used to run just for the Ohio to care food to go eat and go back home. I don't think that not having a library is a killer of not having access to numeracy and literacy. I think we can do all, and we should do all. Every school should have a library. That is my dream, right? And every school should not be dealing with an Algebra 2 green book and an Algebra 1 red book. There should be a plethora of algebra books that students have access to. But when you don't have those, how do you triage? And for me, in an educational system where most of my work is triaging, I don't see that as a bad thing at all.
Yeah. So quickly, just quickly. First of all, we're talking about libraries. We're not talking about libraries. We're talking about infrastructure. How do you teach numeracy and literacy in classrooms that have no chairs, in classrooms that have no roofs, in classroom that when it rains, school closed for the day, in a Liberian rainy season? We are talking again, for me, I don't do triage in normal times. Triage is emergency. We've been running triage for 25 years since the war ended. When are we going to get to a place to say triage is supposed to be emergency, but we're supposed to have normalcy? Sorry, you can give me $88 million to go teach numeracy and literacy when there's no classroom with chairs. When it leaks, when it rains, there's no school for the day. There's no blackboards in summer. You don't need to go far. Go right to Bensonville. You go right to Kakata. Go to Tottenham High. How can you be teaching? So I'm not disagreeing. I'm not even talking about libraries. I'm talking about basic infrastructure. Our education system is completely depleted. How can a teacher walk into a class to teach? No benches. The kids are on the ground. They're bare feet. They can't even get shoes to wear. I'm not saying learning cannot happen under those conditions. But if you're spending $88 million to curate books and materials, and by the way, when these materials come, you know how long they actually last? Because the kids don't even know how to take care of them. The kids got the books in their hands. The carrier who I gave you 1 week, you know what happened in Israeli market, the wrapping plenty inside in the Israeli market.
But even here, Leo, I give my American kids textbook, workbooks, the carrier who don't bring it back.
Hold
on a second. I think you keep moving the goalposts. You keep moving the goalposts. I can teach math. I can teach math to somebody on the palm 1 tree saying,
yeah, but Sisi, should we be doing that to our children?
It's not that you should, but it doesn't mean it can't happen.
No,
so
I'm not saying
that it should never be the case.
No, Sisi, that's not what I'm actually saying.
I can teach numeracy. I can teach numeracy on the palm 1 tree.
I don't disagree, Sisi, that you can do that.
Okay,
I'm saying to you, Sisi. No, Sisi, I'm saying to you, is that the best use of $88 million that our children should be sitting in the rain? Our children should be sitting but let me just say this, and I will just
when I read grants,
be a school board.
What the grant writer, what the focus of the grant is.
No, but Sisi, yeah, the focus of the grant is to do literacy and numeracy in the rain. Fine, but let me just say this to you. In your school board that you're talking about, as poor as it may be, they got electricity. When they show up, the light can come on. They got roof over their head. When they show up, when it rains, they don't cancel classes. They got benches that they can sit on. The bare minimum is what I'm talking about. So for you to compare,
I think you're comparing apples to oranges.
No, you compare it. You talk about your school in Minnesota, and I mean,
I'm just telling you. When you talk about students losing books.
But let me finish.
Right? And I'm telling you that. No. I think that is purely
let me
outside.
land. Okay, please let me land.
No, but that cannot be, to say, because in Minnesota we have different needs. And
now you don't want to start telling me about your school in Minnesota. I didn't say
it. Not talking about that when you talk about student responsibility.
Okay, please let me.
Let's work on student responsibility.
Okay, please let me land.
That is the purely inappropriate comparison.
Okay, please let me land. You are the one who told me say certain schools.
Hold up, Leo. Very passionate conversation, and the discussion shows that indeed we care about what's going on in our country. We care about the children. And we want to see things move forward. But let's get Glendy and Dr. Kennedy a chance here. So, Glendy, we're talking about this $88 million here. I will give my own personal take on this, right? When I was going to school, I remember my very first day of school. My mom had to drag me. The other day, I called her on the phone and we're talking about it. I think I shared this story before. She had to drag me from the house that day to go to school. I don't remember the lady's name, but her last name was Smith, and everyone referred to her as Teacher Smith. I don't know whether you're familiar with Teacher Smith from Grand Bassa or Glendy, but Teacher Smith was my kindergarten teacher, and I know for a fact that the only thing that got me out of the house that day, my mom told me, she said the only thing that took you to school that day, we carry a bowl and a spoon for you, and they used to feed us at school. So the point here is we have $88 million. I mean, you can buy all the materials in the world, right? But when a kid shows up to school hungry, trust me, ain't no learning going on. There's no learning going on when children are hungry. So do you think that And this question is for you, Glennie and Dr. Kennedy. Do you think that the focus, with all the 1 million problems that we have, do you think the focus, part of that $88 million should go towards feeding the children when they come to school? Do you think the government needs to shift a little bit, pivot a little bit, and focus on feeding the kids when they come to school?
I mean, so to say, I don't want to say no. I want to say yes, because if the children are hungry, they need to be fed. If there's a lunch program at school, then that should be something that they look into. But I also want to say, with the conversation with Leo and Cece, that I think Leo may be looking at it, and that's my interpretation subjectively.
Leo's are progressive.
Yes, maybe looking at it at a broader spectrum, the country. But I think, to Sister's point, you can learn anywhere. I was on Cuttington, and sometimes we had at night we had a test the next morning, because I was even though I was smart, I'm not trying to boast here, but I wait until the night before and put my feet in water all night to stay up and study. So the environment for learning, no matter how conducive or inconducive it will be, people can still learn. But you're looking at the amount that's being spent. There has to be a different priority of our government to ensure that the school system is better and that the learning environment is better. Will they not have open tops? Yes. And I think some of those students, you'll find out that there will be Grand Bassa County that they had the highest scores for the national exam. But in some of the environments that they're learning in, they're not conducive. But to your point, I think yes. But this is the thing: if you're feeding the children and you don't have the perfect curriculum for them to learn, then what is the point? Then what's the point? You have to be able to invest in ensuring that you have standardized programs for the students to learn. And of course, they can't come to school hungry, because somebody is hungry, they're not going to learn. So it's possible, yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why the feeding program in other countries, they work and they help, because some people can't afford it. They really can't afford it. So I think it's a 50-50 thing. Invest in your curriculum for your school, but also ensure that the environment in which the kids are learning, it's conducive, and that they do have they're not hungry learning, because they're not going to learn anything if they're hungry. So education, you can gain it anywhere. Sometimes in those awkward positions is where you find. I was doing accounting, and I tell you, that was the only thing that could keep those numbers in my head. Putting my feet in the water all night. Next morning, I go that straight A. It's nothing less than that. But it was unconducive. But that was what worked for me. So it's possible.
All right, let's go to Dr. Kennedy. So, Dr. Kennedy, you heard Glennie.
Yeah. So I heard
we have a million. The list is so long of conflicting priorities, right?
Yeah.
So then the question is, do we need a national agenda? So do we need an educational national agenda that addresses early education? And part of addressing that is every kid that goes to class should be fed. Do we need something like that, so that we're not jumping all over the place? So when one government goes out and another one comes in, they're not changing the game, right? They're not saying, oh, we're coming with our own standard, or we're coming with our own agenda to address our educational needs. So we design something that addresses our need. And part of our need in the country right now is infrastructure, is the economic challenges. So when it comes to feeding, so kids need to eat when they come to school. So can we develop a system that will address those needs, and then it doesn't change as our governing system changes? So what would be your view on that?
I'm going to preempt that and say, yes, we do. But before I get to that, I said something earlier. I said we need leaders that care. First, Without that, all of this stuff means nothing. No amount of money you push our way will be valuable. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, we are in the midst of the travesty of poverty right now, and education is right there at the core of it, right? So here's the thing. There's an adage, right? Show me your habits, and I'll tell you your future, right? We have official. I cannot. I'll be remiss if I don't say this. We have officials of government time and again that gets in air-conditioned car in convoys of 6 or 7 long vehicles, disturbing, interrupting our free flow. And then on the side of the roads are those little 12-year-olds and those 11-year-olds, those 6, 7, 8-year-olds that should be in the classroom. And we're perfectly fine with that. If that does not offend me and call me to action, it doesn't matter what amount of money comes through. It doesn't matter, because that tells me that my priorities are not fixated on developing for those young people, right? So yes, having an agenda, a national agenda that would transcend governments will be perfect. But before that, without the right leaders, without the people that care enough, not just talking, not just pretenders that say, hey, I will do this and we'll do that. And no, we are watching it. Let's take it in a practical sense, right? And my brother, I love the argument and energy from the two brothers. And Cece said something earlier about potential. But how long have we been waiting on this potential to transform? I work in innovation, and we have to accelerate those changes now. It has to be deliberate and intentional. I'd rather you go fast and fail and learn and go than to sit there and try to plan forever and be exploring and experimenting. The young man just said, look, the man not only said, the man brought a library of infrastructure that's supposed to be an impetus for the transformation of education, right? And provide solutions. The pilot has tested positive, right, for us to grow and scale it, and we are refusing to respond. That tells us what our mindset and our focus is. That tells us what it is. So I love the energy in the conversation, but without that mindset, that change of mind to say, look, we care about the future of our young people, so we must be active. Without that, this doesn't mean nothing. No national agenda will sustain itself. The money will come and it will disappear. The resources will come and they will disappear. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to be looking for solutions. Why our counterparts in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Ivory Coast will be running around circles around our young people because we don't care enough. That's my perspective on the national agenda. Over.
All right, let's go to Leo, and then let's go to CC. CC, let's hear your take on this, and then we'll go to Leo.
The people calling CC to the border, so I got a man saying.
But man, don't have on my border. I left a general in charge that I trust. We suspended the Constitution until I can return. Look,
once upon a time tomorrow.
Yeah, once upon a time
tomorrow.
The other one time I'm gonna see you. But anyways, look, on a national agenda, would there be another law? Is that another law that we're passing? Because it goes back.
No, I don't think necessarily. I just think that like our man, the great Liberian musician Tim Taylor would say. We have to shine the flashlight on the target.
You want to shine a flashlight on target?
So I think the law to use the analogy, the Tim Taylor analogy, we have to shine the flashlight on the target. The law is already there. We just need to highlight it more.
So you want you show them, or you want you show them, be sure. Okay. So here's the problem here, right? I know all I'm fully saying. I know why in my brain. But here's the problem. The reason I asked that question was, because it's a systemic problem, and Dr. Pittman pointed to it about the mindset. We can have all of these national agenda. We can have the laws, and we can pass it as laws. I just pointed to the people there. I just pointed to the 2011 Education Reform Act. We have not fully implemented this. We have not even implemented this act to more than 25%. This is an act. Glenn is talking about PTA. I talked about we need to have PTAs. We don't have board of directors, school boards. We need to have in this district, these educational districts, where we have district educational officers, where kind of like look like superintendents in Minnesota, right? Every school district got a superintendent, and then you got a school board, and then you got a PTA, and then those are all laid out in the act. As a matter of fact, there are folks who, even in the act, talked about setting a particular percentage of the national budget to be towards education. Have we, even the people who wrote that act, who signed the act, Madam Salif, who this was a signature piece, did not even implement the act. So I get my brother Leo, him and I, we tussle and bustle and go back and forth. My point is not, look, I lived in USIS library forever when I graduated high school. We used to walk and go up that place, the Mama Point. You know how when you're hot and sweaty and you go sit down in the air conditioner without thinking, it can elevate the scent and just spread it, my man. We used to kind of smell like better go hurt us, my man. But so if I had one of those in Cinco, I wouldn't be walking all the way to USIS. If I had one of those in Bangawa, in Balatua High School, I wouldn't be struggling the way I did. Would it ease the educational struggle? Absolutely, right? For me, the reason I was looking at this is that when you read a grant, the grantor tells you what the grant can be used for, right? If the grant is only for feeding, like I read grant share, they tell me, oh, the grant we have is to provide school food. I read that grant, that money I went for school food. I don't care how my chair then broke, I can't buy one cent or eight for them to get mad at me. So I got to use it for school food. So that was the reason I was asking about the grant piece, right? But look, back to your question, no many. We don't need any more writings. We have written enough. We wrote way enough before more to it. Let's go back to the one we wrote first and let's see how we are enforcing those. And if they're not working, show us the data that shows they're not working, and let's pivot. We have the act on the law, on the books. Why can't we just follow it? The Educational Reform Act is there. That, for me, that is the part about it. I'm not against bringing librarians together. I think when you bring a lot of minds together, a lot of good things come out. But when you bring these people together and they make all these proposals and you just go put it in the dustbin somewhere, then it's a waste of their time. And I don't know any professional that wants to continuously engage in such an exercise. And the border people are calling me, so this will be my closing. I have an event to go MC at. It was nice being with all of you here. I'll be watching on the phone.
And don't be asking when I watch show any, please.
Leo, we have revoked your asylum application at the border. You are no longer permitted. You are out.
I will reapply.
All right, my brother. Thanks for your time. But so
thank you, Cece. Thanks, brother.
When we talk about getting folks together to talk about the improvement and the laws of the educational sector, for me, I think that would be, I would say, a checkpoint. So that would be, okay, this is what we've done over a 10 years period. This is the data that we have. Let's take a look at it. Let's see what's working. Let's see what's not working. And that could be something for the Ministry of Education to do, right? But if you're bringing folks together, then it means that you have all the data. You can send it out to them. They can evaluate it and then come back to these conferences to talk about the way forward. That's the way I would think about it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're just calling folks together to create a new law or to create something totally new, but it's just a space of evaluation. So you want to evaluate the current processes and see what's working and what's not working. That's the way I would look at it. But here we have about maybe another 20 minutes here before we close. The way forward, I've been thinking about, because when you think about our country, right, we have all these different problems. The educational sector is not strange, to those problems, or is not separated, it's not immune. But I always think about, okay, how do we solve some of these problems? How do we remedy some of the challenges that we have, not only in the educational sector, but all across the country? One of the ways that I've always thought about is documentation. So I know, Glenn, the last time we talked, we had a discussion about the topic on corporal punishment. Coming out of that discussion, we said, why don't we just form a group that can put something on paper, document something, and not only stop there, but present that to the local government, present that to maybe the community organizations, present that to these local PTAs or Palava Hut discussion, and then have folks talk about it so that people are hearing about it. So I've always thought about creating these different silos, creating these different groups, because personally I feel like that is how we're going to move Liberia forward. That is how we're going to help address some of our needs, to have folks talk, but not only talk, but document. So I'm asking these questions to the three of you. How do we do that? How do we bring folks together? How do we document? How do we present ideas? How do we shine light on existing laws? How do we talk to our leaders so that they're hearing these things, not only hearing about it, but they're able to push it down the wire, push it down to the grassroots level. So the folks how do we shine a light on the whole idea of feeding in school, and how do we do it? Because we can do all the talking here if we're not documenting stuff, if we're not putting stuff out there in the public, so people are seeing it, so people are reading, so people have access to it, then we're talking in vain, right? So I know, Leo, you had a brilliant idea about some stuff that you're doing at the Learning Center, putting stuff online where people can have access to. But today we're talking about, the post-conflict rebuilding process in Liberia. But when this conversation ends, what's next?
Yeah. I think Lumini asked a very important question. And for me, that's why people look at me. I think sometimes I come at it at a very different place, because I was 9 years old when I started hearing people talking about we need to improve University of Liberia. When I heard people talking about we need to improve the education system. When I heard people talking about all these conversations we're having today. And I've kept track of every developmental plan from Vision 2030 to all of them, from poverty reduction strategy, Ellen Johnson, all the government to arrest agenda. I've documented it, and I did a full review. Our problem has never been the lack of innovative ideas. When you go back to some of those documents, it's never been. People have come up with some brilliant, innovative ideas you could think of. Our problem has been we've become a quick impact project nation and not a 25, 50-year plan. And when you see me talking the way I talk, I'd rather people suffer in the interim and we get to a place that we are on a long-term trajectory, which is what Rwanda did. Rather than trying to just keep people comfortable somehow, we keep stumbling. 30 years later, we're still having the same conversation. So for me, I would say this. The way forward is to switch from quick impact projects, right, to nation building. Because nation building has to transcend multiple presidencies. It cannot be limited to the presidential term of one particular president. Because you're talking about 30 to 40 years of consistent work on these pieces to get there. So here's what I say. We're having a conversation. If I were president for Liberia, the first thing I'll do was suspend all international aid. Suspend it. It's chaos. It's creating serious problem for the country because of its disorganization, its corruption. It's keeping us entrenched in a place of just what we can eat for today. We're not thinking of what we can do 10 years. Here's what you do. Even if I were the one, the Ministry of Education, World Bank come and say they got grant for us, right? Great. We got something called unsolicited proposals. We need to ask ourselves, does this grant really align? Just because of money, they say take any money and that keeps something small happening, it creates more problem. The World Bank will start to show some respect. If the Ministry of Education came out to the World Bank and say, you know what, this is great, and this would have helped if we were at a certain stage. But based on our analysis, we're not there. We can take this money and spend it and call it a missed opportunity. Can we work with you to restructure some of this funding to help us get to the place? I will tell you, I write grants, I fundraise all the time. Funders actually respect people who come back to them and challenge what they're doing, because funders also want outcome.
Yeah.
They're looking for outcomes.
They want results.
Exactly. So they're looking for anybody who can help them figure out, how do I navigate my way? Because they want to boast about saying we helped rebuild Liberia's education system, for example. But this whole idea that we might be doing at least, so I will say it, I will answer this. We need to shift and stop running our country like an NGO. When people come to Liberia, we need to elevate these plans. If it means 9 people turn around and say no, but if one person says yes, that work we will do will last for 40 to 50 years as a foundation. And I will say this to everybody. The first place to start with the education system is from the government. You need to stop appointing ministers as political appointments. It needs to be a performance-based appointment.
Performance-based.
So if I appoint Numeni Walker as Minister of Education, Mr. Numeni Walker coming in with his job description and the COR to say, Mr. Minister, our arrest agenda says we might build 25 schools by the end of our 2nd year in office. So you are taking on this task, agreeing that you are able to lead this portfolio to build 25 schools. Yeah. And every year we will measure you by how many you've built. After year 1, Numeni will build 2. That's the basis for firing Numeni. Numeni should go. He's not capable of doing the job. Yeah. Because right now we're not on a performance base. We are on a political base. Yeah. All of our major ministerial appointments are political based. So nobody evaluates them. There is no measurement. So when they do one thing, after 3 years, we celebrate it as if to say it's the hallmark of SNA. Let me give you the typical example and actually close up on this piece. We have school systems in Liberia. There is no uniform system across the public schools and educational institutions to say, for example, we know what the capacity of these schools are. Some schools that are designed to only take 100 people got 700 kids inside. Until it breaks down on them one day and the catastrophe happens, then we'll be so no time on these schools to know when they're supposed to be renovated until it fall down. Kids are just going there, no record of them to say we know when the school was built. Tottenham had over there. You know how long Tottenham had been standing over there? No proper maintenance and retrofitting or anything until God forbid something bad happens. So we need to shift. The answer for me is shifting from quick impact projects, UNDP call conference. They will all come up with a thing where they can fund in 2 years. No, call a conference and come up with the things we need to commit to for the next 25 years. And every year we just measure and track. And then we revise. If certain things are not working or not making sense, we revise it. We shouldn't be having new conferences all the time. This is why we don't send charts at a time. Everybody can have their own new conference, bring new goals. Poverty reduction strategy, Ellen Johnson said it, and I want to disappear. Nobody going to the dustbin. We don't come with arrest agenda. By the time this government leaves, arrest agenda disappear. And in these agendas, there's no measurement, by the way. They're just lofty goals. Yeah. We have no measurement on them.
No, thank you, my brother. Look, you made a lot of great points. Indeed, we do need to change some of our measuring rods, especially when it comes to performance in government. But again, governments are political systems, and you cannot separate that from any government. I think what the focus needs to be on is nationalism and being more patriotic about where the nation goes instead of maybe that short time of the political system. All right, but let's go to Glennie. Glennie, let's hear from you.
I mean, there's so much work to be done in our country, but I think also the mindset of involving every Liberian, maybe we hope that one day everybody will just get the light bulb will be turned on and we'll realize that our country needs all of us, and then we'll all be able to collaborate and work together. And I say this to say I was one of those who really opposed the Liberian Diaspora Conference, because for me, I thought it was a waste of time. A conference was held here where Liberians came from Liberia to hear, government officials came to talk. And what has happened? What is the end result of that conference? Those things that were said, I mean, what's going to happen to all of those things that people spoke about? So I think we have to get to the place where we're looking at things seriously. What is it that our country needs, and what can we do to help Liberia move forward? Not saying that it's not moving forward, but there's a lot more that we can do as a people. if all hands are on deck. And we have to get to the place where we outside of Liberia can trust the people in Liberia, and the people out in Liberia can also want to trust us, so that there's an equal arm of collaboration to be able to move. Because when you look at it, the focus should not be on individuals. The focus should be on Liberia, the country. And that's how we'll be able to move our country forward. What can we do? How can we help? Is there even, we talk all the time, oh, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have agriculturalists, we have so many people from different places in the world. A true diasporan conference should be reflective of Liberians all over. So the people in Canada, what can they bring? The people in Ghana, the people in Europe, the people in other places, what are we bringing to the table to help our country? And the other thing is, we can bring whatever we want, but who is absorbing those things we're bringing? How is it being disseminated into the culture, into the country, into the educational system? We can talk from now until Jones Day. We can invite people to come and talk. But if they don't come with a mindset that change is the only variable that's going to happen, whether we like it or not, it's a waste of time. And we'll keep talking. It's almost like we're satisfying ourselves.
Yeah.
Because no one takes it seriously, and no one thinks that we're capable enough to make suggestions to want to move our country forward. So what most people do is like, I don't care. I'm not going to do anything. They will keep trying. And the people in Liberia think they have it and know it all. And we outside of Liberia don't want to be bothered because they don't want to involve us. But our country needs all of us to be able to move that needle.
Yes, like the late United States President JFK said, ask now what can you do for your country, not what your country can do for you. But no, those are powerful words. And I've always had the mindset that, like Dr. Kennedy always says, Liberians are the only people who can build Liberia. Liberians are the only people. And this, everyone going in with the mentality that I'm the smartest guy in the room is not going to cut it. I feel like every country, the way I see it, every country is like going on a journey, right? And they say if you want to go far, you go with other people. If you want to go fast, then you go alone. I think we're a lot of times we're trying to go too fast as a country. We're trying to go too fast, and we're not bringing everybody on board. But let's hear from you, Dr. Kennedy.
Just repeating some of the things and just bringing it all together for me. I think every one of us have a heart for Liberia, and when we go home, we hurt in different ways because the minds of our people have been hijacked. All right, they have been hijacked to stay in the state of oppression and deprivation. All right, and poverty, the travesty of poverty. So with that, every little beacon of light seems like the way, and it's not. So when you talk to the young people, everybody see the political jobs as the successful means. All right, and yes, in a classic example, a year or two ago, before the elections, everybody talked about they were in the feces water for Unity Party for election, rightfully so. CDC had a march the other day for a new place. The roads were impassable by Liberians, whether they were impacting them or not, they were just there. This young man that I shared this platform with, on his own work, his own labor, painstakingly collaborated and brought something of tremendous value to Liberia. And we didn't see a fraction of the crowd to celebrate. Now, if that don't tell you what our priorities as a nation lies, then I don't know what else, to Glennie's point, what else we can say anywhere that will mean anything. Like I will be honest, right? I'm not into politics. I'm a straight shooter. I will tell you, I'll say George Weah is the most popular face of Liberia, soccer and president or whatever. But when you start to talk about impactful Liberians. I don't know where the list started without this young man that we shared this platform with. So I would say, like, we bring a show and talk, let him take us through. This man should be leading the charge on transformation in Liberia, and with some other people too, because he's done it.
You talking about me?
Yeah.
You would be on that train as well.
Seriously, right? Seriously, let's be real here. I don't think that this young man gets the accolade in Liberia that he gets. He gets it outside Liberia. Both people respect this man outside Liberia, the inside Liberia, and this man is an agent of transformative change in Liberia. He put something there that our kids for generation will benefit from. We don't get no crowd, don't know notoriety, none of that stuff. That tell you that our people minds have to be reversed. And I will close on that. Unless we do that, no meaning, man. I'm telling you, like Glendy said, we just gonna be sharing our own sentiments with ourselves. We must wake up and really embrace that uncomfortable aura of collaboration and say, you know what? I hats off to you. Hey, let's sit down with you or the likes of the folks that are here. For me, I'm cool. I'm not looking for nothing in Liberia, job-wise. But I just spoke with Glendy. Glendy sees 4 hospitals, oversees 4 hospitals with nurses. Tell me the amount of tremendous impact that could have when you consider our healthcare status right now in Liberia. Are we reaching out? Are we trying to collaborate? I'm not sure she's looking for a job in Liberia either, but she's not saying no to collaboration, to helping solve our problems. And up until we do that, nominee, I'm telling you, we are still in dire straits. The solutions are here. We refuse to change our minds. Thank you.
Such powerful words. Such powerful words, my brother. Look, we're gonna keep talking. All right, we're gonna keep talking, and we're gonna keep collaborating. And that, if you didn't get anything from this podcast today, I think the theme of today's show would be collaboration. You know, let's collaborate to improve the educational system. Let's collaborate to improve our economic systems. Let's collaborate to improve our communities. And look, the changes that's going to happen in Liberia, I think it's going to happen in these different chat rooms. Look, there are people, I'm part of several different chat rooms. There are people that are getting together that are talking about agriculture. There are people that are getting together that are talking about education. There are people that are getting together that are talking about starting new businesses. I think that's where the transformation is going to happen. You know, and the educational piece is a huge piece, because everything that we're talking here, if we are not changing hearts and minds, I'm telling you, you know, we're going to continuously drag on. You know, like Pittman said in this, the travesty of poverty. So we have to keep talking. We have to keep challenging one another. We have to keep collaborating. No one has all the answers. You can't stand up and say, I got all the answers. You know, and I think that's where part of the divide is. People leave from Europe, America. We go to Liberia and we don't bring people along for the journey. We don't hold their hands and say, let's walk together. You know, you can't leave the US or Canada or wherever, go to Liberia and claim to have all the answers. No. I mean, there are people there who've been doing that thing. They've been in Liberia. They understand the season. They understand the changes in the wind. And if you go there, you have to tap into that knowledge. Yeah. So we have to see this thing as we're all on this boat together. And if the boat is going to go down, we're all going to go down together. So we got to keep pedaling together. Everybody got to keep working. You know, that's why it's so important that, you know, when we come together on these different platforms and we're talking, that we continue to, like I always say, to accentuate the positive. You know, let's bring the positive things up front. Let's talk about the things that make us grow together. You know, our educational system is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. You know, Ministry of Education, please fix your website. fix your website. These are the little things. Like I always say, if you're the poorest person in this world, there are certain things that you have control over. You can take a shower. You can brush your teeth. You have control over those things. Such it is for our country. The things that we can control, those things that we can fix on our own. Let's fix those things first, so that the people who standing outside and looking in can say, oh yeah, these people are trying to help themselves. So outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we'll be able to move our country forward. So with that, I want to say thanks to all those who participated today. We have a calling number. So I don't know who's going to be our first caller. We didn't have anybody calling today, but that's fine. We probably may have someone calling on another podcast. But I want to say thanks to you, Glennie, for taking up the time to join us today. Dr. Kennedy, thanks for showing up. Cece, our brother who had to leave early, thank you. Leo, it's always a pleasure here. I will definitely continue to reach out to all of you. You're not going to be strangers here. If there's something that I need your input on, trust me, I'm going to send you those text messages. I'm going to call you and try to get you on here. So with that, I will say, folks, thanks again for joining us. This has been your host, Lumeni Walker of the All the Reps and Beyond podcast. Here on All the Reps and Beyond, we believe in good habits, good repetition, always use good results. Dr. Kennedy, you have something to say?
Yeah, I don't know, you were still having this on the agenda to bring Leo to talk about the center itself, to dedicate one show to that. When are we going to do that?
Yes, we're going to have to do it maybe on, I don't know, Leo, if you're available next week, we can do that. Because I want to know
I can make myself available.
Okay, yes. So yes, we can do that. We'll dedicate next week to talking about the Learning Center, and we can talk about it from top to bottom. I have so many questions, so many questions. So yes, Glennie, if you have the time, you can join us as well. I know I watched you and Leo talk about the Learning Center, so I have to go back and rewatch that show so I can write all my questions down.
Looking forward to that too.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Yes. Thanks, guys. It's been great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Bye.